3 in the morning. You are lying in the dark, and your mind will not stop talking. Then you feel it. A small weight settling onto your chest, a low vibration moving through your ribs. And within seconds, something in your body simply surrenders. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. The thoughts that were circling like sharks just an hour ago suddenly lose their teeth. You did not do anything to make this happen. You did not fix your problems. You did not talk yourself down. A creature that weighs less than a bag of sugar walked into the room, and your nervous system obeyed it instantly. If you have ever felt this, you already know it is not really about the animal. There is a reason certain people cannot function without this presence in their home. There is a reason some of the most brilliant, most sensitive, most deeply feeling humans on this planet have built their entire emotional architecture around a creature that offers affection on its own terms and asks for nothing in return. By the end of this, you will understand something about yourself that no personality test has ever told you. You will understand why some nervous systems reject noise and chase quiet. You will understand why certain people flinch at being needed, yet crave being chosen. And you will understand why the most independent creature on earth is also, for millions of people, the only thing that has ever made them feel safe enough to fully exhale. This is not a story about pets. This is a story about your nervous system. And once you see it, you will never look at yourself the same way again. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Before you ever form a single conscious thought about safety, your body has already decided whether or not it trusts the room you are standing in. This is not philosophy. This is neurobiology. Somewhere beneath language, beneath logic, beneath the version of you that shows up to meetings and answers emails and smiles at the right moments, there is an older system running in the background. Scientists call it neuroception. It is the part of you that scans every environment, every voice, every set of eyes, and asks one silent question over and over, thousands of times a day. Am I safe here, or do I need to brace? Most people never notice this system working. For them, the answer is almost always yes, and the question fades into the background of an ordinary life. But for a certain kind of person, the question never fully goes quiet. Picture a woman sitting in a Tuesday afternoon meeting. Nothing is wrong. No one has raised their voice. And yet, her shoulders are tight. Her breathing is shallow. She is nodding. She is participating. She looks completely fine from the outside. But internally, she is running calculations. Did that comment mean something? Was that tone directed at her? Is she supposed to respond now or wait? She is not paranoid. She is not overreacting. She is a person whose nervous system was shaped, somewhere along the way, to treat human interaction as a place where vigilance is required. Now picture that same woman walking through her front door at the end of that day. A small animal is curled on the arm of the couch, half asleep, one eye cracked open just enough to register that she has arrived. It does not run to her. It does not demand an explanation for where she has been. It simply exists, undisturbed by her presence, unthreatened by her mood, asking nothing of her at all. And something inside her, something that has been clenched since 7 that morning, finally lets go. This is the difference between a nervous system that regulates through stimulation and one that regulates through stillness. Some people recharge by being met with energy, matched excitement, immediate feedback. For them, an animal that runs to the door, barks with joy, and demands constant interaction is a gift. It mirrors their internal rhythm. It gives them what they are already reaching for. But for the person whose entire day has already been an exercise in managing other people's expectations, more energy is not relief. More energy is another demand. What that person needs is not enthusiasm. What that person needs is permission to stop performing. This is the quiet, under-examined truth about why so many deeply sensitive people gravitate toward the same kind of animal, the same kind of environment, the same kind of relationship. It was never a preference for coldness. It was a search for a place where the question of safety could, for once, be answered without a single word. And once that question is answered, something even stranger begins to happen. Because safety, once your body finally believes in it, starts to change how you see every other relationship in your life. the architecture of affection without obligation. Every human relationship you have ever had came with a hidden contract. You may not have written it down. You may not have even been aware it existed. But somewhere in the unspoken rules of family, friendship, and romance, there is an assumption that closeness comes with terms. If someone gives you their attention, you owe them something back. A response, a reaction, a performance of gratitude, an explanation for your mood, an assurance that you feel the same way they do, on their timeline, in the way they expect to see it. For most people, this contract is invisible. It runs so smoothly in the background of their relationships that they never think to question it. But for a person who grew up needing to manage someone else's emotions before they were allowed to have their own, that contract is not invisible. It is the loudest thing in the room. Think about a child who learned very early that a parent's mood could shift without warning. That child develops a skill most adults never have to build. She learns to read a room before she even removes her shoes. She learns to sense tension in a hallway before a single word is spoken. She becomes fluent in a language of tone, posture, and silence, because fluency was the only thing standing between her and getting hurt. That child grows up. She becomes an adult who is extraordinary at reading people. She can sense when a friend is upset before the friend says anything. She can feel the temperature of a room change the second she walks in. On the outside, this looks like emotional intelligence, and in many ways, it is. But underneath it, there is exhaustion, because a nervous system that never stops scanning never gets to rest. Now picture this same woman with a small animal curled beside her. It does not require her to interpret its mood in order to avoid punishment. It does not test her loyalty by withdrawing affection when she fails to respond fast enough. When it approaches her, it approaches because it wants to, not because the relationship depends on it. And when it walks away, it does not need her to chase it down and ask what she did wrong. This is the part almost no one talks about. The bond between a person and an animal that offers affection without obligation is not simply comforting. It is corrective. It is quietly, patiently teaching a nervous system that closeness does not have to be earned through constant vigilance. It is proving, one quiet evening at a time, that connection can exist without a hidden invoice attached to it. This is why so many people who carry old wounds around boundary violations find something in this relationship that they have never fully found anywhere else. There is no negotiation for personal space. There is no punishment for saying no. When that animal chooses to curl into her lap, it is consent, offered freely, and when it leaves, that is consent too. Nothing is owed either way. Try, for a moment, to imagine what it would feel like to experience an entire relationship built that way. No guilt for having limits. No fear of abandonment for having needs. No performance required to keep the affection flowing. Most people go their entire lives without ever feeling that. And then one evening, on an ordinary couch, in an ordinary living room, they feel it completely. And they do not even understand why it hits them as hard as it does. But the safety this creates is not only emotional, it runs deeper than that. It runs all the way down into the body, into the oldest, most primitive parts of the brain that were shaped long before either of you learned to speak. The sound that speaks before words exist. There is a frequency, somewhere between 20 and 150 hertz, that your nervous system responds to before your conscious mind has any idea what is happening. It is low. It is steady. It repeats without variation, without urgency, without demand. And when your body encounters it, something ancient inside you begins to shift. Your breathing slows before you decide to slow it. Your muscles loosen before you tell them to loosen. Cortisol, the hormone your body releases under stress, begins to drop. Not because you reasoned your way into calm, but because a sound reached a part of your brain that reasoning cannot even access. This is the effect of a low, rhythmic vibration on a nervous system that has spent the entire day braced for impact. Think about what most environments actually sound like. The buzz of notifications, the overlapping voices in an open office, the static hum of anxiety that lives underneath every unread message and every unanswered question. Human environments are loud in ways we have stopped noticing because we have never known anything else. Now think about a sound that carries no urgency at all. A rhythm that does not accelerate when you are anxious and does not stop when you need it to continue. A presence that fills the silence in a room without turning that silence into noise. For a nervous system that has spent years interpreting silence as either emptiness or danger, this rhythm becomes something entirely new. It becomes proof that stillness does not have to mean isolation. It becomes evidence that a room can be quiet and safe at the exact same time. This matters more than it sounds like it should, because so many people who carry chronic anxiety describe the same paradox. Silence unsettles them, because silence has, at some point in their life, preceded something bad. And yet noise overwhelms them, because their nervous system is already working overtime, just trying to process the ordinary demands of the day. They are trapped between two states that both feel unsafe. And then, quite by accident, they discover a third option. A sound low enough not to demand attention, steady enough not to create alarm, present enough to fill the emptiness without invading it. Their body responds before their mind even understands what has changed. They describe it later, if they try to describe it at all, as feeling settled. Not excited, not relieved exactly, just settled, as though some internal clock that had been running too fast for years had finally synced with the pace of the world around them. This is not imagination. This is not sentimentality. This is a documented physiological response, and it explains something that so many people have felt but never had the language to name. But here's the part that changes everything. Once your body learns that a certain kind of presence brings it back into balance, it does not forget. It starts to seek that presence out, again and again. Not because you are weak, not because you are avoidant, but because your nervous system has finally found something that works. And that discovery, quiet as it is, starts to reshape something even larger. It starts to reshape how you think, the architecture of undisturbed thought. There is a reason so many of history's deepest thinkers, its writers, its philosophers, its quiet, obsessive minds, kept small animals close while they worked. It was never about companionship in the way most people assume. It was about protection. Protection of a resource that modern life is constantly trying to steal from you, uninterrupted attention. Deep thought does not happen in fragments. It does not happen while your phone buzzes on the table beside you, while a colleague pops into your doorway to ask a quick question that somehow takes 20 minutes, while your own mind keeps refreshing an internal inbox of tasks you have not finished yet. Deep thought requires long, undisturbed stretches of mental quiet, the kind that modern life makes almost impossible to find. And this is where something remarkable happens. An animal that regulates through stillness does not interrupt that quiet. It does not require engagement to feel loved. It does not demand ongoing interaction to justify its presence in the room. It simply exists alongside you, present but undemanding, filling the space without fragmenting it. Picture a woman at her kitchen table at 11 at night, a notebook open in front of her, trying to work through a problem that has been circling her mind for days. A small animal is curled on the chair beside her, not asking to be entertained, not needing anything from her at all. Its presence does not pull her attention outward. If anything, its stillness seems to anchor her inward, giving her permission to stay inside her own thoughts a little longer than she otherwise might have. This is not a coincidence, and it is not simply a personality quirk shared by writers and artists throughout history. It reflects something real about what certain nervous systems need in order to function at their best. Modern culture has developed an uncomfortable relationship with solitude. Quiet is treated as something to be fixed, filled, optimized away. Being alone is framed as a problem to solve rather than a state that some minds require in order to think clearly at all. But for a certain kind of person, someone whose inner world is rich, layered, occasionally overwhelming, quiet is not the absence of connection. Quiet is where clarity is finally allowed to form. This is why so many people who identify strongly with introspective, undisturbed environments describe a very specific kind of relief when they are finally alone with their thoughts and an animal that does not need anything performed for it. It is not loneliness. It is the opposite of loneliness. It is the first time all day that their mind has been given permission to simply exist, without an audience, without an obligation to explain itself. And once you understand how deeply this protects the mind, you start to understand why the bond runs even deeper than intellect. Because underneath the need for quiet, there is something even older. Something that has nothing to do with thinking at all, and everything to do with an instinct your brain developed long before you could read a single word. The instinct older than language. There is a pattern your brain is built to respond to before you ever have a say in the matter. Large eyes relative to the size of the face. A rounded head. Soft, unhurried movements. Ethologists call this the baby schema, and it exists because evolution needed a shortcut. It needed a way to guarantee that adults would care for helpless infants without having to reason their way into it every single time. So the brain built a reflex instead. See, these features and caretaking instincts activate before conscious thought ever has the chance to intervene. Certain small animals, through generations of living alongside humans, happen to trigger this exact pattern. And when they look up at a person with wide, unblinking eyes, something ancient inside that person responds, not to a predator, not to a stranger, but to something the oldest part of the brain reads as needing protection. This creates a relationship unlike almost any other in a person's life, because it is a form of caretaking that asks for very little in return. Think about how most caretaking relationships actually function. A parent caring for a child expects, eventually, growth, independence, a slow release of responsibility. A partner caring for a partner expects reciprocity, an equal exchange of attention and effort over time. Even friendships carry an unspoken expectation that care given will, eventually, be care received. But the caretaking instinct triggered by this particular pattern does not ask for reciprocity in the same way. It does not ask to be reassured constantly. It does not monitor its caretaker's emotional state or require ongoing performance in exchange for continued affection. Care flows outward, freely, without needing to be matched at every step. For someone who spent years learning to contain their own emotions in order to avoid burdening the people around them, this one-directional care can feel like relief instead of imbalance. Giving affection without expecting it back does not feel like sacrifice to this person. It feels, strangely, like freedom. Because for the first time, nurturing something does not come with the risk of being asked to explain their own needs in return. This is why the relationship between a deeply sensitive person and a small, undemanding animal so often becomes one of the most stable emotional anchors in that person's life. It is not a replacement for human connection. It is a rehearsal space for it, a place to practice giving and receiving affection without the fear that either one will be used against them later. And once that trust is built in one place, it begins to change how a person understands trust everywhere else. Which brings us to the final piece of this puzzle, the one that ties every single mechanism we have just uncovered together into a single, quietly revolutionary truth: choosing connection without losing yourself. Here's what almost no one says out loud. We live in a culture that measures a person's worth by how needed they are. Productivity, availability, constant responsiveness, these have become quiet substitutes for value. Being needed has become confused with being loved. Being busy has become confused with being important. And in that culture, there is something genuinely radical about choosing to love a creature that does not need you to survive. Something that stays not because it depends on you completely, but because, on some level, it prefers to. This preference-based bond stands in direct opposition to almost every message modern life sends about worth and connection. It suggests that affection does not have to be transactional in order to be real. It suggests that a relationship can be valuable specifically because it is chosen freely, not because it is required. Think back to that woman from the very beginning of this, the one lying awake at 3 a.m. with her mind refusing to quiet down. When that small weight settled onto her chest, nothing about her circumstances changed. Her problems were still there. Her deadlines were still waiting. And yet something in her finally exhaled, because for a few uninterrupted minutes, she was not being asked to be anything for anyone. That is not a small thing. That is not simply comfort. That is a nervous system finally getting the one thing it has been quietly starving for through years of managing, performing, anticipating, and adjusting itself for everyone else's comfort. If any part of this has felt uncomfortably familiar, if you recognized yourself in the woman scanning the meeting room, or the child who learned to read a hallway before removing her shoes, or the mind at the kitchen table finally allowed to think without interruption, understand this. None of it means you are broken. None of it means you are too sensitive, too avoidant, too much, or not enough. It means your nervous system found something that worked and it held on. That is not weakness. That is intelligence of the oldest kind, the kind that exists to keep you safe long before your conscious mind even understands what safety requires. You were never simply an animal lover. You were a person whose body finally found a language of connection it could trust. And once you understand that about yourself, you stop needing to explain it to anyone who has never felt it. If this made you see your own patterns a little differently, there is another video waiting for you that goes even deeper into why certain minds are built for solitude and why that has never once been a flaw.